Hi, I'm Peter Capaldi. I play the Doctor, and you're watching EMS Productions.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome along to today's video, where we've got another video where I'm collaborating with someone else just a little bit further away today, as I'm going all the way down to Australia. Hello, Aydan.
Hello, Elliot. I am Aydan. I'm the channel admin, the main person of the channel, The Doctors After the Next. We're 5, maybe 6, we don't know yet. People who teenagers that just love Doctor Who, and we make discussions, and I've got a lot of solo video ideas coming on the way. So great to collaborate with the EMS Productions, someone that got me into wanting to do a channel for Doctor Who.
Thank you very much.
So it's great to finally speak to you and do this video.
Okay, well, yes, definitely check out his channel. I mean, I do like his channel, I like his videos. He did say Series 9 was the worst series ever, so I'm going to have to debate that with you, I think. But other than that, I'll let that off. It is a great channel. Do check it out. Before we get into the main bulk of the video, which is about discussing the Capaldi era, what's worked and what hasn't in it, I thought, as we had the news a couple of days ago, or the picture of Jodie Whittaker's costume, seeing what she's going to look like as the Doctor for the very first time, I thought just give us our quick thoughts. So, Aydan, what do you think about this costume? Do you like it?
I'm kind of on the fence about it, to be honest. I love my favorite bit about the costume is the boots. I love her boots and the socks. I think it works good. Her pants are okay. And I like the coat. I'm really on the fence just about the shirt. I like the suspenders. I kind of like the style of the suspenders, how they're different to Matt Smith's suspenders. How they've got. I don't know how to explain it because I don't know much about suspenders, but they just look different. With the shirt, I don't know whether I like it or not. I have to see it in action and see how it works to actually like it. Like from a feel, because I tend to kind of class the Doctors in what they look like. So like David Tennant was like the chic geek, and Matt Smith was the nerd, and Peter Capaldi was the magician. And I've got no idea what to call Jodie Whittaker's Doctor yet. No idea. So what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as you say, I think the key is we've got no idea on what her character is going to be like, so we can't really give an indication of what her Doctor's going to be like, and therefore, I mean, the costume is a bit hard to pin down. I do like some of the sort of nods to classic Doctors and previous Doctors with the long coat, with the sort of Tom Baker scarf style strip across the top, and that kind of thing is quite nice. Yeah. Just to kind of give that little bit of a throwback, and it does still feel very Doctor-y. I felt it doesn't feel too much of a sort of step away from the style the Doctor would wear. With that kind of thing. I think also quite nice, I don't know if you saw a picture, minor spoilers, on Twitter last night there was a picture of Jodie in Capaldi's costume and in filming down in Cardiff. That is happening in episode 1. She is going to actually be in Capaldi's costume. What do you think about that?
Oh, that's going to look good. I think I really like Peter Capaldi's costume, and on Jodie, people have edited Jodie's face onto Capaldi's costume. And I think she looks great in Capaldi's costume, personally. But it's also, I like to see, because she's going to be the shortest Doctor ever, I'm pretty sure.
I think so, yeah.
So the coat's going to be pretty long on her, because Peter Capaldi's like 6 foot. So it's going to be cool to see her in that. I haven't seen that picture. I'll actually check it out after this video is done.
Yes, I'll bring it up for you and you can have a look. But no, I mean, the only thing with it does feel like that often the Doctors have their clothes shrunk when they had their first story. Maybe it won't look too big on her because they have cut down the size of the costume slightly to make it not look ridiculously big.
Yeah. I'd like to go with they go with a realism where they actually keep the size, because the clothes don't change. It's the body that changes when regenerations happen. But we'll see what happens.
Indeed. All right, well, now let's get straight into the Capaldi era. Right, so, the main part of this video is, of course, to talk about the Peter Capaldi era and how much of a success it has been and where some of the things have gone wrong in the last 3 series of the show. So I think, Aydan, the first kind of question is probably, how would you kind of summarise these last 3 series as a whole?
How would I summarise them? So I'd start off by saying they weren't the greatest, but they weren't the worst. Some of the stuff, like I say, season 8 was a great genre change in a way that we went from Matt Smith's bubbly Doctor to Peter Capaldi's dark Doctor, which I love. And I know a lot of people didn't like at the time because they were used to young, baby-faced, eccentric Doctors. And then we get Peter Capaldi, who's basically like, he's just so dark. And what is it? And I really loved the change as well. I wasn't the biggest fan of Deep Breath. I didn't mind it, but as the season went on, he kind of sold it to me. only problem I have with the era is the rate of stories and the overarching themes I didn't really like from each season. That's why I think season 10 was my favorite season of the Capaldi era, because there wasn't an overarching theme, but also just the episodes. Every episode was a good quality if you take out the Monk trilogy. But that's just my idea on that. My thoughts.
I mean, for me, I have really enjoyed the Peter Capaldi era, and it's probably my favourite era of the show, just because I've kind of bought into the Capaldi Doctor so much. Unlike you, pretty much from Deep Breath, I was kind of bought into the show because I'd kind of lost interest a little bit towards the end of the Matt Smith era, and it was only really the Day of the Doctor that brought me back in from sort of series 6 and 7. I wasn't really watching very much of, and certainly not kind of doing anything online about it at all. It was just kind of, if it was on, I'd watch it. But then kind of Capaldi came in, and it just kind of brought the show back to me a bit more. I kind of liked that darker, slightly more alien Doctor that we got for this. And I thought just kind of was a good change of direction, even if maybe for the wider fans it wasn't so positive, looking at viewing figures and all that kind of thing. It didn't work out so well, but I've personally really enjoyed that. And Deep Breath, I think, kind of in retrospect, I like it more than maybe I did initially. I do think it's a good story. It's a little bit too long, but it is a very good story to kind of introduce Peter's Doctor. Maybe not as good as the 11th Hour, but still a very good introduction. And I think in terms of the themes and that kind of thing you talk about, I will say that the arcs are probably one of the weakest points of the Capaldi era. They're just terrible, frankly. I mean, well, the Missy arc was kind of just, let's stick a scene on the end of every episode teasing us nothing about Missy coming back and who she is and everything. And then the hybrid arc was terrible. I would admit that, even though I like Series 9, the hybrid arc was, well, it was a good concept, just they completely screwed it up.
I still don't understand the hybrid arc. I've looked back at it. I still don't get it. Like, I just don't, like, I don't see how that affected the whole show, and especially everything they hyped it up to be. I still don't get it, but
at the time, because obviously I was watching this series at the time, and you were just catching up and binging it this year. There was sort of, it was teased a lot before the series started that there was the hybrid wasn't a sort of the magic words for the series was the word hybrid. Then that sort of idea that there was a prophecy in the ancient Time Lord history that there was some creature that was a hybrid of two warrior races and all this kind of thing. It was built up in people's minds that in the finale we were going to get some sort of crazy half Time Lord, half Dalek hybrid, or some sort of hybrid creature that was half Time Lord and half some other creature, and that was going to again try and sort of be the massive villain of the finale. And that was all seemed a very exciting idea to have that new kind of Time Lord legend becoming a villain. But then it turned out it was just sort of Peter Capaldi's Doctor, sort of the Doctor and Clara, kind of a shield, but not really. And it was just kind of a messy resolution in the end, unfortunately. So I think that's the best way. That's the best way I can explain it, if that helps at all.
Yeah, it helps a little bit. I thought it was a tiny bit smart because the only thing I liked about Clara was she acted like the Doctor, and it got her killed. Well, by killed, she didn't actually die. But I liked the whole idea when they said, oh, the hybrid is me and Clara together, when the Doctor like basically confessed that. I thought that was smart in a way, a little bit, but I still didn't get it. I'm like, it makes sense, but it still wasn't that great.
It was definitely wasted potential with that storyline.
Yeah.
And it did kind of become a meme as well. You would have missed that. Like a Hybrid was a meme of 2015. It was the Doctor Who meme.
I look at the Peter Capaldi era, and I just two words come to mind: wasted potential. Like you said just then. I'm thinking about doing a video, and I still might do that video, calling why Peter Capaldi could have been the greatest Doctor of all time. Mainly because he is, in my opinion, he's the greatest actor to ever play the Doctor, besides Bill Hartnell. Because he was such a high, well, he was on the higher echelon of actors to play the Doctor, and how we had this gruff Doctor coming back, kind of bringing back that classic feel of like the first Doctor, the third Doctor, and a bit of the sixth Doctor, but without the dickness. But I just thought that if he stays like this grumpy Doctor, I'll love him for his whole run. And then we get the 9th season, and he just comes out on the tank with his guitar, and I'm just like, okay.
See, it's an interesting one with that, because I've been watching back the Capaldi era, and I've actually just finished watching The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar, which is, of course, that story with the tank and everything. And there is no denying there is a big character change between Last Christmas and The Magician's Apprentice. But for me, it's kind of I think to do with the whole Davros storyline in that episode, and then is then reined in a little bit from sort of the next two-parter, the underwater base two-parter and everything like that. A lot of it was down to the Doctor having made this big mistake, feeling like he's going to die and all this kind of stuff that was brought into it, which I think made him go a bit crazy. And they kind of acknowledged when Clara says that this isn't you, this isn't what you do kind of thing. She was sort of acknowledging that this is an odd change of character and maybe isn't something that was meant to be so permanent. So I think that can somewhat explain why there is such a big change. But certainly watching Last Christmas and The Magician's Apprentice back to back, it is pretty a massive change, a little bit disjointed, even if it is kind of explaining the plot.
Yeah, because I was, as you said, I binged it. So I watched every episode right after each other. So for me, that was a massive change, going from the gruff of Last Christmas into The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar. It was a massive change, and I'm like, I don't know if I liked it. I kept watching the season, and we'll get into that later. So, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I feel with Last Christmas that he was mellowing slightly compared to Series 8, like the stuff on the sleigh and everything that. It was going that way, but then they just went a little bit too far with The Magician's Apprentice.
Yeah, but Last Christmas, I was really hyping it up because Nick Frost was in it, and Nick Frost and Simon Pegg, they're comedy gods to me. I've grown up watching them. I watched Shaun of the Dead when I was like 7, and then I watched I just love, and I watched The World's End at the cinema when it came out. I just love them. And Nick Frost as Santa Claus, I'm like, this is the making of something weird but wonderful. And the episode wasn't too bad. I can't really remember it, but because episodes that are kind of like good, but they're kind of in the mediocre range, because especially like Christmas episodes in Doctor Who haven't been the greatest. But so most Christmas specials I forget. So, but Nick Frost was great. So yeah, it was definitely a mellower turn to what season 8 was.
Well, I mean, let's tackle the Capaldi Doctor. How do you think Capaldi? How do you think Capaldi's done playing the role? And how do you think his Doctor's developed over the 3 series? Obviously, talked about a little bit, but what are your sort of overriding feelings on Capaldi as the Doctor?
I think he's, in my opinion, because I've only seen the first Doctor. I've listened to the 8th Doctor. I've seen the War Doctor in action. I've seen the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And so far, Capaldi is a solid 3 out of all of them. So obviously for me, ranking is Christopher Eccleston is my favorite Doctor. Then maybe I always say it's either Matt Smith or Peter Capaldi, interchangeable, and David Tennant as the 4th. Mainly because the only reason why I have David Tennant so low is because I'm not a big fan of his era, and especially the lovey-doveyness of his era. But that's a whole nother issue to be tackled in another video. So, but he's still one of my favorite Doctors. Like, he was the Doctor that solidified I love Doctor Who. So, because I just watched the 1 season of Christopher Eccleston, and then I got into the David Tennant era, and I just like, this show is amazing. David Tennant's a great Doctor. Like, I still believe that David Tennant's a great Doctor. I just don't believe he's as good as the people who so Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi, because I just brought so much gravitas to the role. But Peter Capaldi, I found a funny joke, and I was explaining Peter Capaldi's Doctor, and they said we could have a multi-Doctor story with Peter Capaldi from season 8, season 9, and season 10, and they'd all be completely different. And I'm like, I'd pay to see that. That'd be great. So just coming up with the gruff season 8 Doctor, and then with then you're having him with the guitar and the Sunnies for season 9, and then season 10 just have him as the professor of the university. I'm like, they'd fight so much. I can just see so much fighting. So yeah, just love it. What are your thoughts, Elliot?
For me, I do really enjoy the Capaldi Doctor. I liked, as I said, that they went darker to start off with. Clearly, the kind of mellowing went a bit too far in Series 9. You kind of feel that maybe the Series 10 Capaldi Doctor kind of fits in between the Series 8 and 9 Capaldi Doctors in terms of the character development. And if you'd run them those 3 in that order, maybe it would have worked a bit better, and it would have felt more of a gradual progression rather than what we got, which was kind of really dark, then really silly, then halfway, is how it kind of felt to me like it was going. So maybe that was let him down a bit. As I say, personally for me, Capaldi is my favourite Doctor. Despite some of the writing in places, just the way he plays it, it's just he feels like the Doctor for me. He's really got that gravitas in the role. He's, as you say, probably the best actor to play the Doctor as well. And I think that really shows in when some of the scripts have been a little bit iffy. Often he's lifted them above the quality they've really had. And then you look at, Heaven Sent is just amazing anyway, and he is what makes that. You look at the Zygon Inversion speech, just these moments, Well Enough and or the Dr. Fall speech even, about kindness. Just these sort of moments are just absolutely phenomenal, and the way that Capaldi plays it, I think, is so brilliant. And just you really buy into him as the Doctor, even if some of the stuff he has to say or the plots aren't that great, is what my sort of things with that would be. Like,
for me, watching Malcolm Tucker, then the Doctor, just shows off Peter Capaldi's range just perfectly, like what he can do. It's like, I heard someone say Matt Smith was born to play the Doctor. And that's why every one of his roles I've seen him in, I just feel like he's still the Doctor in a way. Like, especially with the way he speaks and the way he uses his body language, especially in The Crown. And I'm like, I still see him as the Doctor. So like with David Tennant, he's just like, David Tennant's like, still great, like Broadchurch, and him and Jessica Jones as well, just showing off that role. And I just think Peter Capaldi just has so much range. And that's why, like, I still think, even though he was in season 9, he was that Dr. Funkenstein, and then in season 8, he was the Gruff, and then in season 10, he was the Professor. Even though he was all those different doctors in a way, he still was the best part of the seasons. Like, he's shown through all his scripts. Like, it was brilliant. Like, the way even though the writing wasn't great, he just made the episodes so much better than they actually should have been.
And as you say, I think kind of, certainly watching it at the time, you kind of, every review, almost the first thing they say is Capaldi is the highlight of this episode. Always Peter Capaldi was the highlight. No matter almost what the plot was like, he was always the one that everybody was talking about from an episode, just because he always put so much into the role. And I think that's probably why he's also having to give up now, because he put so much into it, and I think he was just getting worn out from the role. I mean, some of his latter sort of series 10 episodes, he almost, I feel, looks a little bit kind of worse for wear. Not just because he's made to be, but he almost just looks a bit sort of tired, I think, at this stage, having just gone through the sort of rigour of it so many times now. I mean, I think that will probably show up in Twice Upon a Time as well. And then sort of some of the more recent pictures of Capaldi are sort of, after 4 months off, he looks almost a bit fresher and a bit, not younger, but he just looks a bit more full of life than maybe he does towards the end of his era, just because he's put so much into being the Doctor.
Yeah, like one of the big things as well was the stuff he does, or the stuff he did for the Doctor Who experience in Cardiff, like how he would pop in every now and again, and he would be in character and he would speak to the children. I'm like, this man loves the show so much. And also that quote of when he was like showing his daughter Doctor Who, he's like, I grew up watching the show, I loved it, and if you don't love it, too bad, you're watching it. I'm like, that's going to be me later if I ever have children. I'm showing them Doctor Who. I'm like, I grew up watching this show, I loved it, you're going to watch it, if you don't love it, too bad, you're watching it anyway.
Yeah, that's literally it. But no, as you say, Capaldi has probably been one of the best Doctors with the fans. He's always just so willing to give up time for the fans. I mean, my personal experience of it was from when I did meet him at a DVD signing last year for the Series 9 box set. And sort of there was a queue of about 400 people in there. And he'd spent a good sort of 3 hours in there. And he was still giving everybody their good 2 or 3 minutes of chat. He even like obviously recorded the little intro for my channel and everything. And that was about 2.5 hours into the session. He was still willing to do that, even though all the PR people are saying, "Come on, you need to speed it up, wrap it up." He was still taking that extra time to make sure every fan gets sort of what they wanted as much as they can with him, because he knows what it's like to be that fan. I think is what makes such a big difference.
He knows what it is to be a fan, because he grew up watching the show from when it started. And he said that like one of my favorite quotes was, he used to like during like, because he was only like 5 when the show started, 4 or 5. He's like, in kindergarten he used to run around and all the kids used to grab their lapels and try to act like Bill Hartnell. And it's just stuff like that. And he knew that like people would run around and like some kids would grow out their hair to be more like Matt Smith, or other things like they used to like, especially in the mid 2000s, they used to spike up their hair to be like David Tennant. He knows like what the fans were like, because he was one once, and he still is. He still loves the show, and I just find that so great. Like, it's a true fan. Like, you're going to get the best performance out of someone who's a true fan. That's why though Christopher Eccleston is my favorite Doctor, the way he's treated the fans after Doctor Who hasn't been that great. And the way, because he never was a fan of the show. Every Doctor was like Matt Smith, but Matt Smith basically became a fan of the show by being on the show. But like, David Tennant grew up watching the Fourth Doctor and the Fifth Doctor. That's why he channeled the Fifth Doctor and the Fourth Doctor and put them together in a way and became his Doctor. And Peter Capaldi just grew up watching every episode of Doctor Who. So that's why, like, you've got a bit of everything in there. Like, sometimes I see like a bit of McCoy sort of in Peter Capaldi at times. And it's just great to see someone who's that big of a fan be the Doctor.
And I think it shows how sort of versatile an actor he is, that he's able to kind of channel those different portrayals of the Doctor and kind of give an impression of them at times, but make it work so well within his character. He's just kind of giving a feel of previous Doctors, but he's still his own Doctor. He's not just a copy of John Pertwee or something like that some people try to compare sometimes. He is his own Doctor. I mean, just to mention on Christopher Eccleston, unfortunately, I saw a comment this week from him implying that he doesn't like conventions and sort of thinks that the fans are wasting money by going to conventions and this kind of thing. It's just money grabbing for the actors and all that, which wasn't the nicest thing to say, really. No. It's unfortunate, as you say. He only did Doctor Who because Russell T Davies was writing for it. That's literally the only reason. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done it, and that's why he only did one series. And I personally don't think he's ever watched an episode since, as far as I'm concerned. But this isn't a Christopher Eccleston video, so we should probably leave it at that one. What's your thoughts on? Well, Clara and Bill have been our two main companions. You've had Nardole as well. How would you describe, and what have been your feelings on the companions of the Capaldi era?
Companions of the Capaldi era. My favorite companion, I seriously don't know who it would be, but Clara's definitely not it. So, like, what I didn't like about her is she had no character development. So it's just so hard to talk about Clara, because I cannot say anything nice about her besides her Face the Raven episode. And maybe like she was good in I have to admit Before the Flood and Under the Lake. Is that what those episodes are called? Because that's basically like that was the highlight of season 9 in my opinion, that those two episodes. And Clara was actually decent in them, and I'm like, keep this up, Clara. And then she didn't, but then in Taste the Raven I'm like, this is a perfect send-off. Like, I'm like, she was the Doctor basically, and that got her killed. I'm like, that's good, end it there. And then she came back in Hellbent. I don't like to talk. I always forgot the name of the episode because that's how much it weighs in my mind. So I'm moving on for Clara, because I just don't think I've got anything.
Well, I'll do a bit more on Clara because I do like Clara. I'll do that in a minute.
Okay. So, yeah, you go ahead. You talk about Clara. You talk the positive. See if you can convince me.
Clara. She is an interesting one of Doctor Who. Series 7, even though it's pre-Capaldi era, yes, she had no character development. I will agree with you there. But I feel from the Day of the Doctor onwards, she did start to be more fleshed out as a character, because the problem in Series 7 was she was a plot device, therefore you couldn't go anywhere with her as a character. But once you got to Series 8, you had the whole thing with, obviously, Danny Pink. I know Danny wasn't the greatest character in the world, and maybe the sort of storyline wasn't fantastic, but it kind of brought out Clara's character traits a little bit more, the idea of her being a control freak, and that whole thing about her trying to sort of control both lives, I thought was very well done, and quite a nice idea, although maybe a sort of not so much of a likeable character trait, potentially, but maybe more a very real character trait, and I feel that she has, that she's just trying to be so in control she can't sort of bear it if things are not exactly as she wants them. And I thought that was quite interesting and nice to sort of follow. The Danny Pink storyline didn't do much for me. It wasn't great. Danny Pink wasn't the most likeable character, which didn't help. And you kind of just wanted her to move on and stay with the Doctor, because I personally always tend to be positively biased towards the Doctor rather than somebody trying to take the companion away. Unless you hate Clara, then maybe you wanted her to go. And then Series 9, they probably overplayed the whole, she's becoming too much like the Doctor, she's taking lots of risks, she's going to get killed at the end of it, I have a duty of care and all that. It was played a little bit too obviously. they sort of was a bit heavy with the foreshadowing, I think, which didn't really work. I think a lot of it was down to whether you bought into the Dr. Clara sort of relationship, whether that you bought into that or not. I mean, the chemistry was fantastic between the two of them. Personally, I felt they're both. I mean, Jenna's a fantastic actress, I think, as well, and she certainly did everything she could with what she was given, which I thought was quite which
wasn't much.
Well, at times not, no. But I do like the whole becoming the Doctor storyline, because I don't think it's something that they've done very much at all in Doctor Who previously. Was the idea of a companion that was sort of really did want to become the Doctor. Whereas I don't think I can't think of many others that really wanted that. They always were friends with the Doctor, but never really wanted to be the Doctor. And therefore, that's where you have the funny thing with Hellbent and Face the Raven. Obviously, kind of, she's denied what she wants because she's not a Time Lord, essentially, but then gets what she wants in the end and essentially becomes the Doctor. So it's... She is too perfect a character at times. I will not deny that. Although she has her flaw of being a control freak, which kind of screws things up for her a bit, and then the whole trying to be too much like the Doctor. She still doesn't have. She's kind of has lots of plot convenient knowledge, shall we say, at times. Like, for example, in The Magician's Apprentice, when she just wanders into UNIT and knows exactly what to say, and she's smarter than the whole of UNIT, essentially, which. Yeah. It ruins UNIT, for example, and just makes Clara unrealistically clever when she's just a school teacher. Although she's had lots of adventures, she's still shouldn't be quite at that level, I don't think. So she's had some funny development. She had a funny arc, and she's always going to be a divisive character, I think, that some people will love and just some people just don't. And I think it's whether you buy into the Capaldi Clara relationship, because certainly by the end of series 9 you can see there's a fairly deep relationship. Bordering on a love. I don't know how close they got to that. It's not Tenrose levels, but it feels pretty close.
I think it felt more like they love each other in a way that they just need to be together, but they don't want to be they don't need to be together romantically, but they co-depend on each other, which I really felt like that really came out towards Heaven Sent and Hellbent, which was one of the actual things that I actually wanted. Like, I really wanted Stephen Moffat to do, when a companion leaves, the Doctor never really had that much PTSD besides the Martha thing, but let's not go into that. But I just also on Danny Pink, I wanted to bring this up. I really, really liked the whole idea where he called him a captain. Or a general. No, he called him a general. I actually really like that, because there's no way you're going to make me hate the Doctor. So I thought this was just a really good way of making kind of pointing out that the Doctor has killed and he has a dark past, and showing that that he's not the saint, like the space Jesus that Matt Smith was made out to be. So, yeah. I
know what you mean on that. I mean, obviously then Danny becomes a sideman and dies. Did you care? Did you care when he died, or was it kind of like, eh?
I really, really liked how Clara handled it. That's another thing I really liked. The way that she was just like, no, it didn't happen. And then she was threatened the Doctor to you've got a time machine. Let's go back and save him. Because I feel like that's how someone would react in that situation. Because one of my friends, he's a Clara basher. He's like, I don't like Clara, but he despises Clara, everything about her. And he's like, that's not how someone would react. But I'm like, I would react if I was in that situation like that. I'd be like, you've got a time machine. Let's go back and save the person that I hope to marry, kind of in a way. It's just, I felt like that was good, but then they end up going back on that, especially with Last Christmas as well. I just felt like Last Christmas would have been a good jump off point for Clara.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And it's very clear to see through those sort of Death in Heaven and Last Christmas that they were late rewrites of endings where they thought Clara was leaving and then she's not. Kind of thing that clearly Jenna was just undecided about whether she wanted to stay on or not. But just coming back to those sort of Clara's reaction to Danny dying, I think that's those sort of 10 minutes after that happens, when we see the whole scene on the volcano and then the Doctor essentially forgiving Clara, I think is one of their best sort of scenes of the whole kind of 3 series. I really feel it kind of shows properly the flaws in Clara and sort of how far she'll go in that grief state, but then how caring and loving the Doctor is towards her, that no matter what, he still forgives her. And I feel that's kind of really a great message to give across as well, that no matter what, he still forgives you, even though you've betrayed him, betrayed everything he is. He was still willing to forgive her for that.
That's kind of like the Master relationship as well. No matter how many times the Master stabs the Doctor in the back, the Doctor will always have open arms for the Master. That's why I think the next incarnation of the Master is going to be possibly one of the most evil incarnations of the Master whenever they do it. Because I feel like the Missy might have that feel of abandonment towards when she dies, because they're not going to kill off the Master. The Master's going to come back. And with the next incarnation of the Master, I think is going to be very annoyed because the Doctor kind of abandoned her on that colony ship, I think. But that's another video for the next couple of eras of Doctor Who whenever they do bring her back.
Right, well, we've addressed Clara. It's always going to be a mixed response. So let's move on to Bill. What did you think of Bill in Series 10? I
really liked her. I think she was, unlike Clara, just to segue back to Clara for a quick second, I believe that Clara Oswin Oswald would have been a better companion than Clara, because I just found that Clara Oswin Oswald was just, when in the Snowman Christmas episode, she stole the show, in my opinion, more than Matt Smith did, because with the whole thing of that episode was Matt Smith's new costume and how he had PTSD because of the whole Angels in Manhattan thing. But I just think Clara Oswin Oswald, the way that she played, Jenna Coleman played that character, was brilliant. And then I was kind of really annoyed when that character died, and I'm like, because I knew that Jenna Coleman was going to become a full-time companion. So I'm like, I wonder what they're going to do with her, and they end up making her a school teacher, which I thought was pretty boring out of all the things you could have chosen. But because we've already had 2 school teacher companions. So yeah, but anyway.
I mean, the only other thing I wanted to say on that is that I believe that Clara Oswald was originally going to be the Series 7 companion. Just late in the writing stage, Moffat or somebody, I don't know quite why, decided that they were going to change it and have another version of Clara for Series 7B. It was originally going to be Victorian Clara as the companion, which I really wish they'd stuck with.
Yes, I wish they did too. But segueing that into Clara being unbelievable and also non-developed because of the Impossible Girl, I feel like Bill was a great kind of change, that we had a companion who sold chips and wasn't even a uni student. So, and the only way she became a kind of uni student is because the Doctor took her under his wing and kind of said, you've got potential. And he really, I really felt like Pearl Mackie and Peter Capaldi, I really felt like there was a teacher-student relationship between them. And that made the whole season really good, because Bill was ready to learn and the Doctor wanted to teach. So I thought that was brilliant for the whole season. And I didn't know, the only episode, because the whole thing was, why does Bill have to mention she's a lesbian every 5 seconds? The only time that really stuck out was in the Eaters of Light episode. That's the only time for me in the whole season where it really stuck out. So
yeah, they did. To some degree, they did kind of keep on mentioning it. There was several mentions of it, but I don't think it was as much of a problem, as you say, as it was kind of billed to be by some people who clearly just didn't like her as a companion or something like that.
I was like, all those people saying it's left-wing propaganda, and this is just social justice warriors taking over Doctor Who, which another episode. Another thing for another time.
We've got a whole series of videos sorted now, haven't we?
Yeah, we basically do.
For me, I really like the change of direction with Bill. Although I like Clara, it was very clear it was time for her to go, and they needed to have a very different companion in Series 10, because Clara was not someone you could identify with enough, because she was too much like the Doctor and had all those sort of problems. Whereas Bill is a normal human being. She is just a normal person that we can relate with, and that's so important in the show, to have somebody you can relate with, because you can't relate with the Doctor realistically. I think that really helps it, and she just sort of had a fresh take on all these weird things. Obviously, I mean, the little 2-minute clip she did wasn't so good. Clearly, it wasn't. It was a little bit sort of cheesy, and the writing wasn't great on
Didn't
that.
see it, so I've got no idea.
Oh, okay. Well, you have to go and look that back up. The infamous As Bill clip. Yeah, you have to go watch that because it's basically a scene from the pilot, just slightly adjusted. When she meets a Dalek and everything, and she says, "What's a Dalek?" and all this. So I like that she had a fresh take on things. I mean, I've seen some people saying she definitely should have stayed on for another series. Personally, I feel because of the big change in the show that she did, it was the right decision to get rid of her at this stage. And she had a nice arc through the series, sort of developing as a character through to, well, okay, becoming a Sideman wasn't the greatest for her. And she got a happy ending in the end, which I think was quite nice as well. And sort of was well deserved, shall we say?
Or just a funny little thing, because at the time when I started to watch season 10, I was underway writing a script for my own Doctor Who series, and one of my main companions, she was an orphan, and when Bill came in and was kind of an orphan, like she was fostered, I was like, damn, they thought of it before I did. But I still think that can go somewhere, especially in the way that I'm going to take it, but I'm not going to talk about it because I don't want people stealing my ideas. But I really like that Bill was that type of orphan character in a way, because, and also the way that the Doctor acted upon that she never saw her mother, and then you see like all the pictures and all that. Like, and also there's a deleted scene in the pilot, which I thought would just add a bit more of a complete feel of it, where in the bar where is it Hannah? No, Heather. It's Heather. No, it's Heather and Bill meet. The Doctor's playing guitar.
Yes, I love that. Why did they cut that scene? I couldn't believe it.
I don't know. No, I don't understand, because it just sets the mood. Because the Doctor was kind of like, he's into that relationship, so he wants to like he's just setting the mood with the guitar, and I actually really like the Doctor and the guitar. That I really like that part of Capaldi's Doctor as a muso, as a music fan and music enthusiast and musician as I am myself. I just thought that the Doctor as a musician never really came up. Like, I'm not sure about like in the classic series, but I know that David Tennant mentioned a few pop culture things during his run. He was the Doctor who name dropped like heaps of famous musicians every now and again. So we got kind of the feel there. And then was it Peter Capaldi with the guitar was just like, oh, I loved it. But Bill, as like we were talking about. I remember we're talking about Bill. So, Bill, yeah, I actually really like Bill. I thought she was a great change from Jenna Coleman's Clara, and the way that they ended her character, I thought was, I liked it at first. I was like, it would have been better if they killed her, but then I'm still happy that she did get her happy ending, and then I'm like, oh, it's good, it's all good, like. And then the day that I actually finished watching, they dropped the trailer for Twice Upon a Time. So I watched Twice Upon a Time, and I thought that as soon as Bill came in the end, I was like, oh, how are they going to do this? Like, we just said goodbye to her, and I thought that goodbye was perfect, and maybe they would bring her back later in the show, maybe like just for a one-off episode. But no, she's coming back for the Christmas special. So
yeah, no, I know what you mean with the whole exit thing. I mean, they probably should have just not made her a Cyberman if they were not going to kill her, I think was the key thing there. And that's always the problem that I think is an issue with Moffat, is that he always essentially kills the characters and then brings them back, which just devalues the whole killing them in the first place and kind of renders them a bit pointless, all those scenes. So with that sort of thing, you've either just got to kill them or not. Don't do it and then rectify it. And then there's the issue of it being fairly similar to Clara's departure as well, with her sort of Clara becoming essentially immortal and flying around in time and space, and Bill essentially becoming immortal and flying around in time and space. It's a very similar exit on that side of things. So, yeah, a little bit repetitive, but I feel it does work with Bill. Just maybe they could have done something different.
And also, talking about like who's coming back in Twice Upon a Time. Jenna Coleman's been really shady about if she's coming back or not. And I said, she's just, since the Doctor doesn't know her, that she's going to come back for 5 seconds and she's going to write on the whiteboard or on the blackboard, "Run, you clever girl," and then they'll end the season on that.
Yeah, I feel she will have a scene. I'm fairly sure she'll have a brief scene in the special. I'd be disappointed if you didn't, to be honest. I can see it being very much a similar thing to Amy, where it literally is all of 20 seconds that she appears for.
Yeah.
It would kind of be the sort of slightly heartbreaking kind of, maybe the Doctor sees her just as he's regenerating, he remembers her and then regenerates or something. It would be kind of like just a slightly painful way of doing it. But no, although I've seen her comments, as you say, where she seems a little bit kind of not wanting to commit to whether she's honest or not, really, a little bit. Wasn't she like something like "don't get your hopes up" or something along those lines? That she said. She
said something like that, but she said, like, she also said that the Victoria filming, like the filming was long. That's all she said. Like, she didn't say she was in it or not. She just said Victoria took up a lot of time. That's all she said.
But to be fair, they probably want it to be a surprise. There's no point in her talking it up if they don't want people to know anyway. So we'll just have to wait and see, really.
I don't mind either way, because I honestly, like, it's going to be for 20 seconds, so who really cares besides the Clara fans? But because I've got a friend who's, like, as I said, the Clara hater, and I've got a friend who's the Clara lover, so it's a complete opposite spectrums for them. But for me, honestly, I don't mind. I just want to see Doctor Who again. I want to watch, that's going to be the first ever episode of Doctor Who I'm going to watch live.
That's going to be good. It's going to be good.
By 12 hours behind. So,
not kind of live.
Going to be watching it. Yeah, kind of live, like 12 hours after you guys get it.
Moving on to the only other companion we've got really left to talk about, which is Nardole. Of course, you will have missed the absolute shock that Nardole ever came in back to Doctor Who. But yeah, what did you think of him?
Oh, biggest turnaround for a character ever. Like, I didn't like it. I didn't, because I'm a mad follower of like just British comedy in general, and Matt Lucas is like god status in British comedy, and I didn't like him in The Husbands of a Song. Just that episode in general wasn't great, and then we had him back for the return of Dr. Mysterio, which has to be possibly one of my least favorite Doctor Who episodes ever. One of my friends actually likes it because he's into superhero stuff. I'm like, I just don't like it. Like, in general, I just thought it was a terrible story. But anyway, then as the season went on, in the first episode, he was okay. And then what changed it for me was Extremis. That from there on, Nardole was one of the most likable characters in that season. I just think he's great.
Yeah, I really like Nardole. He probably wasn't great initially, but that's just because he wasn't written to be a recurring character. It's written as a one-off comedy character. But once, as you say, by Extremis, once he got the character development, because in the early part of Series 10, he hadn't really been written in because it was just too late an addition to the series. Yeah. So sort of the pilot he was forced into a bit, but then he was basically left out of the next 3 stories before we get to Oxygen and Extremis, when, as you say, he kind of takes the lead a bit more and feels like a bit more of a character pushing the plot along and actually being involved with things, which I think was very important for him to really establish himself. And yeah, by the end, you genuinely do feel sad to see him going in the Doctor Falls. It is genuinely a sad moment, which I think virtually nobody thought that when it was announced that he was coming back. It was like, what on earth are they doing? And so, yes, definitely, been a great turnaround, as you say, but it still has some brilliant comedy one-liners as well, of course.
But also I thought that, just a small thing, especially with the Dr. Falls, his relationship with the mother of those children was really good. I just loved it. And also because the mother of those children, I was, because during that time in my English class, we were studying Macbeth, and our version of Macbeth we were watching, she plays Lady Macbeth. So seeing her play Lady Macbeth and then seeing her playing that one character in the episode is so like weird. So, but Nardole was great. Like, I just loved him in this. Like, big turnaround for a character.
Okay, well, I think the next big topic to move on to is the writing of the Capaldi era. Stephen Moffat. Oh dear, what has happened here? What are your thoughts on Stephen Moffat, Capaldi era?
As a writer myself, I feel like there was he comes up with some great ideas. Like, I couldn't come up with half the stuff he comes up with, but the way, because I think he just thinks of a really cool idea and he's like, oh, this could be great, and then he writes it and he hypes it up, and then he's just like, oh, I can't think of an ending. Let's chuck this in and we should be good. So I just felt like that. And that really came out, like really jumped out with season 9 and season 8. Like not so much season 8, but more season 9, how he's just like, oh, the hybrid. And no, we didn't get it. That wasn't a very good payoff. I totally agree with you where you said season 5, the way that he wrote that was perfect. He probably planned that in 2005. And he just added to it as it went on. Like he said, oh, this would be a really cool idea. Because there was no doubt he was going to be possibly the number one contender to be showrunner. So he obviously thought certain things through. And that I just felt like that was years in the making. And then season 6 was a great concept, not finished off good. Season 7 had nothing. Season 8, I felt like I wasn't a big fan of it, but in the end, it wasn't too bad. And then with season 9, it was just not that great.
Yeah, for me with season 8, I think I like the individual stories more than I do any sort of arc of that series. So I do really enjoy Deep Breath. I really like Listen. I really like Mummy on the Orient Express, Flatline, Dark Water, and Death in Heaven. That's like about half the series. I do really like those episodes. Just the only storyline is the Missy arc, Danny Pink and Clara, which isn't great, but the Missy arc, which is just literally, let's put another scene in this week to tease Missy coming back or who she is, and then we find she's the master, which is a good reveal, but it was kind of predictable. So that was a bit disappointing. Yeah, as you say, as I have previously said, Series 5 is amazing for weaving an arc through a series. It's just so perfectly crafted with the cracks and the whole development. And then you get episodes 4 and 5 with the angels, where they suddenly start revealing a little bit more of what's going on. Then in the Silurian two-parter, where we find out that it is the TARDIS, it's blown up, and Rory goes and everything. It's just so perfectly done and concluded as well. And it felt it was going so well into Series 6 with the Doctor dying in episode 1. It's like, this is a great idea. How are you going to get out of this now? But then he blows the resolution. There is no arc to Series 7. And then I feel he never quite gets it back in terms of the sort of arc and the storytelling on that side of things. I mean, personally, he's done some very good individual stories in the Capaldi era. Heaven Sent, obviously, is amazing. I just love it so much. And I personally do enjoy episodes like The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar. I do think they're quite good. And Well Enough in Time and The Doctor Falls, I really enjoy that one as well. I actually really like Extremis, even though a lot of people hated it because it was very Moffat-y, but that's probably because I quite like some of the Moffat-y styles he brings to it. So yeah, there's a lot of episodes he has written that I like, but I sort of feel maybe the overall direction of the show he's taken it in, and some of the arcs he's put into it have just not been so good, and have therefore kind of let each series down as a whole, even when there's been some good individual stories.
Personally, I feel like what Moffat has written within certain series has been some of the better stuff in the series. But one gripe I do have with it, one of these big things of the Peter Capaldi era was Robot of Sherwood. I can't really, when I watched that episode, I think it wasn't the second episode of right after. Was it?
Well, yes, the third episode of the series, second after. So Deep Breath into the Dalek, then Robot of Sherwood.
Okay, yeah, I completely forgot about Into the Dalek, which was basically like a very poorly done Dalek.
Yeah, very visually impressive, but not a very good story.
Yeah, like they played on the idea that the Dalek was kind of like sympathizing with the humans in a way, and felt like, and then he ends up like it's just poorly done version of Christopher Eccleston's Dalek. But what is it? Robot of Sherwood. When it opens up with that spoon fight scene, I was like, "What the hell is Moffat thinking when he wrote this episode?"
Well, to be fair, Mark Gatiss wrote it.
Yeah, he did actually. Yeah, because I thought that Moffat wrote it.
I wouldn't criticize Moffat for that episode.
Yeah, because those two are thick as thieves. Mark Gatiss and Stephen Moffat. They're always trying to plug each other's work. So was it just poor? Why would you even think that? I can't, just the spoon. It's just, I can't even go into how stupid that is. But Mummy on the Orient Express was possibly my favorite episode of the entire season. I loved it. It was great. Same with Flatliners was really good. And also like the idea Clara actually did a good job taking over as the Doctor in a way, with the Doctor like basically like helping her with certain things along the way. Season 8, the problem with season 8 is it's actually it's like number 6 on my rankings. So it's not great, but it's not bad. But the main reason is because I just don't remember the season. 9, I remember being just like, I didn't like it. But with season 8, I just don't remember a lot besides the good episodes. Like, listen, I thought that was going to be possibly one of the greatest Doctor Who episodes ever. But then the ending goes and like the last 10 minutes of it. Didn't really like I was actually, I got like goosebumps watching when the bed sunk. I was like, this is like, because I love horror. And this was like horror at its finest. This is great. I love it. And I love the whole concept of the listen monster, even if there is or isn't a monster. That whole idea of the listen creature was great. Kind of like the Vashnarada and the Weeping Angels in a way. Like Moffat's come up with some really great like monsters, and that will probably, like, I'm surprised I haven't brought back the Vashnarada. Like, no, I don't know why, because it's such a great monster to bring back, especially now that people say he's overused the Weeping Angels. The Weeping Angels will return. That's inevitable because they're one of the most infamous Doctor Who monsters especially of the modern era. But I felt like that, and then was it writing going into like, especially like into season 9, how we just I felt like the Doctor was a different character, which is one of the. As a writer, it's one of making your characters consistent is a big do that and don't not do it, because it just makes your character more believable. But with the Doctor, he's got so many incarnations that you can kind of get away with it. And I didn't mind it, but I just felt like it was too much of a change, as we talked about earlier.
Moffat definitely has stayed too long, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah. I think a good 4 years. Like I reckon I've talked to my friends about this. Like, I would like a Doctor to stay around for more than 3 years, so we can get a bit more of a fleshed out. Like I said, perfect is probably 4 years for the Doctor.
Yeah, the thing with Capaldi's Doctor that's frustrating is that we had the chance for him to be written by a different showrunner, which would have been very fascinating to see. He was one series away from it. And only needs to do a 4th series to do it, but unfortunately he decided to rein it in. And yeah, I kind of agree with you that probably we should have a little bit longer with Doctor. I certainly hope that at the very, very least Jodie does more than one series. I'm slightly concerned she might only do one series, but we will see how that plays out.
One series? What?
I don't know. I just have a feeling she might only do one series. I don't know. I heard that like 2 seasons maybe. Yeah, like, I can kind of see. I can see her doing. I don't think she'll do loads of series personally.
I just want her to be like, because I'm really optimistic about her. So I'm hoping she sticks around for the stock standard, and also for my continuum to work, the series that I'm writing, she has to stay around for 4 seasons, which is very unlikely. But
the one thing I think that I'd like Chris to try and introduce that kind of Steven sort of tried but didn't quite make it work would be the idea of a kind of multi-series arc and plot line, which kind of Steven did early in his era and tried to do, but didn't really kind of conclude it and join it all together properly. But I feel like having maybe Jodie for 2 or 3 series and have an arc that weaves through the whole of those series that's planned from the beginning to the end and really has a perfect story that has a beginning and an end to her Doctor, rather than Moffat's great ideas, the whole Silence Will Fall, the Crack in Time, all that did carry through many series, just fell apart by the end of it, essentially. I mean, what do you think about that idea?
I think Chris Chibnall is great at writing a series, like a continued multi-arc series, like, well, not multi-arc, but a single arc that goes through many series. Because I think, like, with Broadchurch, at the end of the 1st season of Broadchurch, I was like, we found the killer, what are we going to do now? And then he continued it, and it was good. It was still great. And I haven't seen the 3rd season yet because the 3rd season's not on Netflix. But
definitely go and watch that. It is probably better than the 2nd series, so it's very good.
Okay, I need to watch the 3rd season, but I feel like he can do that well, and I really hope that they do that in a way like maybe, like I always said that don't do the Daleks straight away, and don't do them as a finale villain, because that's kind of cliche as well. In a way, like I would like to see either a completely new main, like, big bad villain, like or bring back someone like Omega. Like, I feel like, especially with the state of Gallifrey, I think Omega, this is perfect time for Omega to rise back, because Gallifrey, Rassilon's not there. And so, and we don't even know if, like, because Big Finish has always played on the idea that Romana becomes Lady President of Gallifrey, but obviously she's not in the show, especially in the modern series. So I've always felt like that they should bring back someone to try and take over Gallifrey, or have a season like someone brought up the idea, do a complete opposite of John Pertwee and do like the Doctor's banned from Earth and can't come back to Earth for some reason, and they do something like more Gallifrey based stuff, or do just more space something like that. But that's what I felt like. Stephen Moffat was ambitious, but he wasn't ambitious enough with the show. That's why we kind of lost viewing figures, in my opinion, because it felt like people just weren't coming back because they felt like there's no one's going to die, there's no importance, and they always hype up the regenerations like usually the end of the season. So what's the point of watching the bulk of the season? And even with they hyped up like the whole idea, the reason they didn't mind the leak of the Mondasian Cybermen and John Sim because they thought it was going to bring viewing figures, but it didn't.
No. It was a completely pointless decision. Yeah,
and it would have been since it didn't have any sway. Imagine if they didn't do it, and we all like I did. We all watched it. I'm like, wow, it's back. I knew about the Mondasian Cybermen because I saw pictures, but I didn't know about the John Sim reveal, which was really great. I loved it. It was great. Like I just felt like the writing. Moffat has wrote some great episodes of Doctor, especially in his era. He has as well, but I just felt like he wasn't. He's like you said, he overstayed his welcome. He was in it for way too long, and we kind of got like desensitized by Moffat's writing. How we kind of just got used to it so much, and we weren't like we're like, oh, this is just another Moffat episode, stuff like that. So,
okay, well, we have been chatting for a very long time now, so I think we will come towards the end. I think the final good thing to talk about is your favourite and least favourite episodes of the Capaldi era. Probably start with the bad ones first. Let's finish on a positive note.
I'll do one from every season, just 3 favourites, one from every season. So my least favourite from Series 8 is probably Kill the Moon, because that was such a non-Doctor episode. Like, the Doctor's never done that before, like what he did in that episode. And I just felt like it was very non-Doctor Who, and also it's just a stupid idea.
Worth noting that back when that episode aired, you won't have known it, but that was hyped up. Was the idea the Doctor would do something he's never done before, was the big line of that episode before it aired.
No. Yeah, well, that was falsely advertised, but anyway. And then for season 9, least favourite would probably be Hellbent. I have to say, because I just want to forget that episode altogether. I just want that season to end on Heaven Sent, and then we have no idea what happened between Heaven Sent and Dr. Mysterio, or no, the Husbands of River Song. That's the one that comes after that, and we're just like, oh yeah, that he was back on Gallifrey. We've got no idea what happened, but the fan fiction writers do what they want. And then was it in season 10? Probably my least favorite was either the Eaters of Light, because that episode went nowhere, or the whole Monk trilogy, because it was such a mess from a writing standpoint. How we had Moffat wrote all those episodes, but for 2 of those episodes he had a different writer help him.
Well, essentially the second and third parts were purely written by another writer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just a mess. You don't get like you just don't. If you're going to do a 3-parter, have Moffat either write all of them or write none of them and let someone else write it. It was very messy. Like I like the whole idea, but it was just messy. So what's your least favourite episodes of the
Series 8? I would probably agree with you on Kill the Moon, again, because the Doctor is just completely out of character. And even though they were going for a Dark Doctor, it's just not what the Doctor would do, no matter what. He'd never just leave them to save the Earth on their own. He just doesn't do that. So that just annoyed me about the episode. It was one of those few episodes that actually annoys you. It can be boring and rubbish, but to actually annoy you is quite rare. So definitely that. Series 9, I don't dislike Hellbent, so I'm not going to go for Hellbent. I'll have to do a defence of that episode somewhere for a video. But I think probably Sleep No More would probably be my least favourite of Series 9. I just find it sort of it's a bit of a mess, kind of like the Monk trilogy. You don't know what's going on half the time. The plot's just like, none of this is real, you're all going to die kind of thing. It was all just a bit confusing and messy. I like that they did something different with the filming, but it makes it a bit difficult to follow because they went with that style. So overall I just found it kind of boring and unengaging, really. Then Series 10, I would probably say the Eaters of Light as well, just because I found it was, again, just boring. Nothing really happened. it was just a very... It was nice to have a classic writer and all that, but it was just a very uninspiring plot where nothing much happened. Yeah. And shout out to Return of the Doctor Mysterio as well for being quite a disappointing story. Particularly from our point of view, having had a year of no Doctor Who, and then to have that was not great. But what about your favourites?
Favourites? Series 8, probably Mummy on the Orient Express, or maybe a Listen if you remove the last 10 minutes of the episode. And then for Series 9, we have, probably for me, Heaven Sent. Heaven Sent's just brilliant. But I don't mind, because I just love Davros as a villain. I really like The Witch's Familiar and The Magician's Apprentice, mainly because I buy into the Doctor's relationship with Davros being like that. He could have, like, he has that idea, because I've heard about what happens in Genesis of the Daleks, how he has that choice. And I just felt like that was always a great thing to do with the Doctor and Davros. So I always like that. And I don't mind, the more I think about it, the more I like it with Before the Flood and Under the Lake, because I've only ever watched that once, but the more I think about it, the more I like it. Like, when I first watched it, I was kind of indifferent about it, but the more I think about it, I'm like, I want to watch it again and see what I think about it. And then for season 10, I really, really liked Knock Knock because of the horror genre. But I felt like the ending kind of let it down. But my favorite of the season would probably have to be the finale. I think that Moffat really saved himself by making a good finale. And if he ended on that, I wouldn't mind. So, like, I would say, like, you did good. You did good. But then now we've got the Twice Upon a Time coming, which looks to be great. That might become my favorite episode of the Capaldi era. We don't know.
Potentially, yet, so. Yes. I mean, for me, for Series 8, I'd probably say Mummy on the Orient Express. Ever since I first watched it, I just instantly enjoyed that sort of murder mystery style story. I felt the Doctor was a really well written and really well played in that episode. That he was that slightly darker element of he's willing to kill people to sort of succeed, and that sometimes people have to die to make things right. And I thought that fitted very well with his character, certainly at that point in its development. So that was definitely a favourite of mine. Series 9, Heaven Sent. I have to say Heaven Sent. I have said in my previous videos, it's probably my favourite episode of the show. It's just a brilliant idea from Moffat that's perfectly realised in Rachel Talalay's direction, Murray Gold's music. Peter Capaldi's acting is just absolutely phenomenal. It's just him walking around a castle for 55 minutes, but it's amazing.
But it's so good.
And so that's testament to Capaldi and the writing and everything. So yeah, I have said that many times. And then Series 10 probably for me would be the finale as well. Well Enough in Time and the Doctor Falls. I do really like Extremis as well. It's a slightly random one. And Oxygen, those two I do really like. Before the Monk Trilogy falls apart, I do like those ones. But Well Enough in Time and the Doctor Falls are my absolute favourites. I mean, for me, the sort of last 5 minutes or so of the Doctor Falls, with the full-on sort of referencing continuity and everything from there, with all these references to various previous Doctors and moments and everything, was just so perfectly done. And with the first Doctor appearing at the end, just kind of finished everything off to perfection. Where in the past Moffat's let down in his second part of finales, I felt I just actually got the second part right this time round, which was brilliant. So yeah, that is the list. Your final thoughts on the Capaldi era?
Final thought, I felt like in a way it was better than Matt Smith's era, mainly because season 6 and season 7 were just so good. But then season 5 just carries the Matt Smith era so well, because season 5 is my favourite series of Doctor Who ever, because I had no idea how could someone follow David Tennant as the Doctor. And then Matt Smith came in with the 11th hour, and I was like, this is perfect. This is a complete, while being still the Doctor, he was just so different, and he handled things so well. And then that whole season followed on, and the only episodes that I really didn't really like was the Dalek episode, but because I was sort of indifferent about that, and the Venice episode was okay as well, but the rest of the season was just perfect. And and also the Silurian thing was as well, but all the great episodes of the season just outshine everything else. But that's the same with the Peter Capaldi episode. Definitely because of the quality of writing, the great episodes like Mummy on the Orient Express and Heaven Sent and the finale of season 10, they just outshine all the shit stuff that happened in the season, in all the seasons prior. So yeah, I felt like it's either on par or just above the Matt Smith era. But I can understand why a lot of people do not like it. Like, but I personally myself, since Peter Capaldi is one of my favorite doctors, and also how was it how in small doses, with all those really good episodes, it's Peter Capaldi, and the whole Peter Capaldi era was great. So,
I definitely agree with you. As I've said, I probably enjoy the Capaldi era pretty much more than anything else. Capaldi is what made this era what it was and made it so successful.
Yeah, definitely.
Until I personally feel he'd be looked back on as a greater Doctor than he is currently, maybe by fans, as more people discover his era in the future, because there just isn't that many people watching the show right now. And I can understand it, because it is very much, there is a lot of kind of fan referencing and that kind of stuff in this era, a bit more than in previous, so it maybe was going to drive away some sort of casual fans of the show that just don't pay enough attention to it at times, shall we say.
Yeah.
So overall, it's hard to say whether it was a success for the show. It was enjoyable in the most parts, but maybe the viewing figures and the general popularity shows maybe it wasn't a success as such.
Well, I definitely feel like that. I've always thought that looking back on this era, a lot of people are going to like it more in future. So going 10 years, 20 years, it'll become, as much as it is now, like people calling it the death of Doctor Who and all that, like those people. I feel like that if the show, like if Jodie does reignite the love affair with Doctor Who that the world had with David Tennant and the start of Matt Smith, I really think that looking back, a lot of people, when they go to binge the show or when they go to just watch certain eras in general, I really think that the Peter Capaldi era will be looked back on with some sort of like it was pretty good. Like it's not going to be as generally hated by all those people as it is today, especially.
And well, thank you very much. I've got about 30 seconds to wrap this up before my camera dies. So very quickly, check out your channel. Remind us of the name of your channel, Aydan.
Yes. The Doctor's After the Next. It's a bit of a mouthful. But
I will put a link in the description so you can hit subscribe on his channel. Check it out. Does some great videos. And I'm sure going to keep on growing as a YouTuber. So thank you very much for coming on. Have you enjoyed it? Yeah.
Thank you for having me. And we better make this quick. So thank you. And just if you subscribe to EMS, yes, it's great. It's great.
Subscribe to us both. Remember to like this video, subscribe if you're new here, comment what you thought about the Capaldi era, and I'll see you again very soon for another video. Goodbye.
See ya.